Anthony.
Langham Hotels.
Yes.
We have demand.
We do. I cannot believe this. I got to tell you, I'm a little bit intimidated here because I don't think we're worthy to have a real hotelier from Asia over here speaking with us today. So let's introduce Mr. Stefan Laser, the CEO, Langham Hospitality Group. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you being here. All right, so before we turn to the mic, we were talking a little bit about the Langham Chicago. I've had the folks on there on my No Vacancy show. Anthony, you featured them in your 5-Star Secrets TV show.
We did a show on Travel Channel called 5-Star Secrets, and Chicago Langham was one of the first people to sign up and take a chance on us because I've done Hotel Impossible for so long. So I've been turning hotels around, and people were nervous to say, you're the hotel turnaround guy. We don't need to be turned around. But Rose Genovese, who used to work for Langham, I called her and she goes, she's a Brooklyn lady, I'm a Brooklyn guy, and she goes, you screw this up and I will hunt you down. And we went there and we did a great show, and she called me up and she goes, that was amazing. And the entire team loved it. And there was a room service waiter that came up, and everything is unscripted, kind of like the podcast. So they said, order room service. So I ordered room service, and the gentleman knocks on my door, right on time. He said he'll be there at 3:00. He was there at 3:00. And, he said to me, Mr. Melchiorri, we have an appointment. I'm here for my appointment. I go, we have an appointment? He goes, yes, we have an appointment. I go, I ordered room service. He goes, yes, that was our appointment. And he brought in the room service. I just thought it was just a cool way of saying it. We have an appointment. So I was very impressed.
Okay. Look, I mean, that's it. We can close now because you basically brought the essence of what we want to be, right? You know, and I think Chicago delivers it exceptionally well, and I'm very happy about the property. Obviously, because it's also our first where we, took an existing building, which was an office building.
And not only an office building, an IBM building. Yes. So you want to see a boring building on the outside, but then you go in and it's an amazing building on the inside.
Now you offended a lot of architects because it's a Mies van der Rohe building. Yes, he might have in our eyes, boring architecture, but in architectural language, this is really an icon. So this was his last building, and we actually, when we did it, we worked together with, some of his relatives in terms of bringing back the essence of what he's trying to do. And converting that, I think, is one of the things that I have seen in hospitality that really worked out well.
Can I get my foot out of the poop I just stepped in?
Yeah, go for it.
It's a beautiful building if you're a corporation, and it works well within the skyline of Chicago. But as a 5-star hotel, you think of a Plaza or a Waldorf.
Right.
You think of an iconic structure. So when I saw that structure and say that's a 5-star hotel, I was like, well, that's a really beautiful office building, but not a hotel. But you walk in and you bring that place alive. Yeah. The lobby, I went into the lobby, and there's this beautiful ceiling chandelier. I wouldn't even call it a chandelier.
It's a glass installation. Yeah.
A glass installation. And I walk in, and my director has the cameras up, and I go, I want to talk to the front desk agent. The front desk agent was busy with someone. I said, I want to talk to her. There was 3 of them. I said, I want to talk to her. She just looked like she knew. She just looked like she knew what was going on. They all looked like they knew, but I just wanted to talk to her. I go up to her and go, can you tell me about that? She went on and talked about this glass installation with no prior knowledge I was going to ask that question. And she talked about like she created the thing and put it up. It was fascinating to me. And we got it live, and we got it one take, and it was over. She was just so knowledgeable. And that's what's great about the Langham and that level of service. It's in most hotels, they give you an answer. Oh, you like that? Oh, yeah, it's pretty, isn't it? She was able for 5 minutes go from beginning to end, what it meant, the south, the north, the lights, the sundown, the sunset, whatever it was. I was just sitting there going, you're a genius. And I asked her, I said, what school did you go to? Hospitality school. And, of course, she was a professional hotelier, and she went to a great hospitality school, and she really cared about getting that information right.
But it starts with actually one step before, because, obviously the team then recruited personalities, right? Because she first and foremost was a positive person. That's what I think is for me super essential. When you go into our industry, and if you're not an intrinsically positive person, you will not be able to stand.
I just fell in love with him, and I'll tell you why. Because we talk about you're the first person to ever say that. Because people say we have to find people. No. we have to find positive people.
Right.
Because it doesn't mean you're a people person. It means you're a positive person, right? Because I'm an introvert and I'm a loner, but I'm a positive person. So, and I love taking care of people. So my natural instinct when people are around me, like, do you ever get tired? No, because I'm a real positive person. And so when people say, well, I'm here, why do you want the job? Because I like people. I said, well, I don't really like people that much, but I like making them happy. But I like making them happy.
My mantra is simpler. I say I only hire happy people.
Right.
And you know what? I'm not judging that, happy is better than not. I'm just saying if you're not intrinsically happy, you can't survive in our profession. Because the amount of energy that you need to come up with just to show up for work will over time, just wear you out.
You know what? So many people have said it in so many different ways, but no one said it better than you. That's it.
Wow.
That's it.
That's it.
Well, thanks for being here on
Thank
today's
you.
show.
No, but we make this complicated, right?
Yes.
And then what we have is we have people that come into our industry that aren't positive, aren't happy, and then what do we try to do? We try to make them positive and happy. Have you ever been able to make a person that's just negative and miserable happy?
You can teach standard operating procedures,
Sure.
right? But that's not bringing it across, right? Your brain scripts that I want to trigger when you come to our places are things that you keep in mind when you go back home and you open the door back home and, your partner is next to you. And then, the only comment I want to hear is this was exactly what we needed, right? And whether it was then the service piece, or was the little connection that you had in the lobby with with our colleague from the front.
And that's got to come from within, because I imagine if we ask you about your childhood, which I will like to ask you about your childhood, and the positive influences you had around you, whether it be your mother and father, whether it be your aunts and uncle, there was someone that somewhere that you saw worked really hard and was a positive attitude. Who was that?
My mother. My mother was, my father thought that he's in charge, right? But my mother was the one that...
We all think we're in charge.
Yeah, I was about to say, my wife lets me believe that too.
So go ahead.
I suffer of the same disease. So, and that's the part where, whatever happened, there was always a positive attitude to it. Whether my dad worked 2 jobs, but we never felt that we can't afford anything, right? It was just a different way, but it was always a positive attitude to whatever comes to you in life.
And where'd you grow up?
In Bavaria, actually, in Germany. So I'm
cool.
from Bavaria originally, but I haven't lived there in 20.
So how'd you get in the hotel business?
23 years. Actually,
Could I jump in before we get into all that? Because I want to ask him another question about the happy people thing, and I don't want to lose that moment. If you don't mind,
nose intimidate
my
you?
God, the flaring of the nose! I've never seen such a thing.
Yeah. In meetings, when people see that, they all leave.
I know. Believe you me, I would love to leave too. Right. So I want to ask you about the happy people thing, because you're in Asia, you're in Europe, you're in the Middle East, you're out in the Pacific, you're here in North America. Do certain continents or countries have a naturally more positive population than other places? Meaning, is it easier to find those people in certain locations than others?
No. When it comes to happiness, I don't think so. When it comes to attention for detail or, level of let's say, patience, yes. There are differences in the culture, but we all have seen that, right? In Asia, obviously the attention to detail is sometimes to an extent where I'm
exhausted.
Exhausted, or I'm amazed.
Right.
In terms of if you see a setup of a dinner at a beach for a couple, and you say like, wow, this is. If you would see the same setup in the Caribbean, it would be pretty much different, right? I'm not judging it. I'm just saying there you can see the difference. But in terms of happiness and positivity, I don't think so. I think it then when we talk beyond happy, it's about the character that you have on the other side, right? You have some extroversion. You have people that are afraid of expressing themselves or not, and then. You find the right spaces for them.
And you put them in revenue management or in accounting.
Right.
We have a very positive revenue manager, right? That still knows.
No, I mean being, but they're numbers people.
Yes.
My partner's a revenue manager. She's the most positive person I know, but she likes looking at numbers all day and doing revenue management. Right. She may not be the perfect person at the front desk. Not saying she's not a positive person, but she likes numbers.
Exactly.
Right.
All right. So please, now you can continue with what you were saying.
So I'd like to know, in our industry, a person in your position is revered. Because I know from my perspective, right? Because I've been a fixer, I've been a turnaround expert, and I've not been I've been in a lot of positions, development, marketing, but I've not been in a position where I'm in charge of one of the great brands of the world. And with that, there's a lot of complexity, and you have to have a lot of intelligence and a lot of positivity. But it's a difficult job. So I want to know a little bit about how you grew up and how you learned to take on a job like that, and for someone, more importantly, to trust you to take on the job, because it really is one of the most coveted jobs in our industry.
Yeah, I don't know.
We know. We're telling you.
Yeah, I don't need your opinion. I'm just telling you.
No, look, I actually grew up in travel more so than in hospitality. You know, I worked at a travel agency. I worked at a tour operator. I owned a tour operator. I sold it. I worked then in an airline for a few years. I worked in actually IT related to travel and hospitality. And then I worked at one of the biggest tour operator, European based. And then, you know, obviously I've seen the transformation in our industry. When I came back into travel, I mean, direct travel from IT in 2005, and internet, you know, World Wide Web was very much hyped. But the reality wasn't really there. You know, everybody talked about it, and
I'll put my credit card on the internet, right? That's what you heard as soon as it happened.
But I'm like, you know, the real transformation in terms of what we've seen, in terms of distribution and how people communicate, happened actually right around 2008. And whether the financial crisis, was a catalyst, or, you know, the iPhone, the use of different things, but that has really changed. You know, the way we distribute, the way we look,
right.
The way we see things.
One of the things that I say is we seem to have moved from a more materialistic society to an experiential society, and that's informing a lot of the travel businesses, at least here in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, when I started in a travel agency, right, I usually say my biggest actually skill was that I could read quicker upside down than the clients that sat in front of me, right? So they thought I know. Well, I obviously didn't know because I haven't been at those places.
Right,
but
clever.
they came to us because they wanted to have information. Now, information you have at your fingertips. So when people come to us, whether it's in distribution or even in hotels, they want that information turned into know-how, meaning in context of what you are and who you are.
And I think you just answered the question of why you see a spike over the last 5 years in travel agencies.
Yes.
Because there's more information than there's ever been,
Yes.
but people want it to be basically handed to them because you seem like an authority.
Make the information relevant.
Right.
Because there is so much information out there
Right.
that might not be relevant for me. But if you know me, then you might know what's actually relevant for me. Because, you know, I mean, I usually describe that you go into any city and you have two similar properties in our industry. When you just look at the hard facts, they could be, you know, absolutely identical. But when you walk into them, they could be a style of a Langham Chicago, or they could be the style of a Langham London, you know, a very historic property. And it might appeal to you or not. But if I don't know you, then I don't know whether, you know, this is something that appeals to you.
You know, I'm a New Yorker, and one of my
Really? You're gonna tell?
Yeah, believe it or not. And the things I get a kick out of is when someone's coming to New York for the first time, and I get to tour them around. Like my partner, she's been in New York. She worked at the Waldorf, so she's been in New York, but her friend has not been there. So I got him an egg cream. I got him the best slice of pizza. I brought him to Coney Island. I showed them.
It
New
sounds
York,
like a instant turnaround.
But actually the best egg cream in New York City is not only at Gem Spa, but it's also at Grimaldi's, or I should say Giuliana's.
I'll be there next week. So.
Yeah. So you got to go.
Here we go.
So my point being is, being a traveler, I'm not a travel agent, but like I'm a travel agent in New York, right? When my friends come, like I know, like if you can, the first thing I'd look at you and your wife, talk to you, say, what are you interested in? And I would know exactly what hotel to put you in. So my first thoughts would be probably the Mark, the Upper East Side, maybe the Surrey, you know, the Langham. You know, it like you have so much knowledge that it's power. So I could literally set an itinerary for anyone in the world if they're coming to New York.
But you said it. It's not information. It's knowledge.
Right.
And that's a significant difference. And that's the same what we do basically in our daily life, right? You know, I mean, in terms of everybody talks about personalization.
Right.
It only works to a certain extent.
Well, most of it's lip service, right? So how do you turn that idea into something that's real? Because you're dealing with a very high level caliber of clientele, and you don't want to screw it up. You really want to know who they are and what they like and be able to craft experiences that are geared towards their personality. So how do you break those barriers to get to know them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that you don't believe that technology will fix the problem.
Right.
Because technology will, could have actually increased the problem. I just came back from a week-long stay in Bali, and I'm not mentioning the properties, but, I went there and downloaded the app and, interacted with basically the guest services, and it raises your expectations, right? If I ask for a couple of yoga mats, then I expect them to come. If they don't come and I had the interaction, then it's actually a letdown rather than
right.
And an improvement from my experience perspective. And there are examples like that. So what I'm saying is when we implement technology, then it has to serve the purpose in terms of providing our colleagues actually an advantage of having the personalized interaction with the customer. And it's not supposed to kind of like substitute the interaction, because that is then...
Yeah, and I think when you look at Amazon, the reason Amazon's been successful is because it's been almost perfect, right? So if you can get technology that's almost perfect, if I go into a hotel and you can text me, get me my yoga mats, and when I see the concierge for dinner, I feel the whole experience has been enhanced. The concierge knows what restaurant I should go to. But when I didn't really want to call the concierge and I just texted them yoga mats and all of a sudden my yoga mats came, that enhances the experience. And so many times, to your point, like this morning when I'm staying here at the Aria, I push all the buttons to open up the drapes and do this and do that. It all worked. It all worked. Now, when I went down to the front desk, to get a new key, the person was lovely. It all worked really well together. So back in the day, it was like, well, 5 stars, you really can't use technology. Now it's 5-star technology, but it's got to work.
Yeah, but it's in the back.
Right.
I think we are in the...
Of course.
We're in the high touch, maybe with high tech, but we're not in the high touch versus high tech.
I think what you're saying is you're utilizing technology to facilitate human experiences.
Yes.
Right.
Like I want my door to open easily.
But that breaks in terms of scalability. I don't believe that you can neither grow super fast with that, because then you're losing your authenticity, maybe, or your core values. If I look at in terms of our growth pace, then I say, would I like to have it a little faster? Maybe, but at the same point in time, it's a little bit like if you grow trees. We're not necessarily putting the kernels somewhere and wait till they come out. We need to somehow cut off branches and then put them in there, because we need to move teams. We need to move attitudes and people.
But don't you have like 30 properties under development and different phases of construction, et cetera, et cetera?
We have currently, when we go to the Langham brand, we have currently 16 in operation, obviously in 4 continents, which makes it from a management perspective, when you ask what's the difficult part in the job, makes it from a management perspective challenging, because they're in all kinds of time zones. So, literally always something is on. And then we are growing over the next 5-6 years, maybe between 6 and 8 properties. So it's not a pace that is outrageous. And I don't think that we will grow to 100 properties. I think the ideal size to be still manageable, to be in the right locations, to have something to say, and also be consistent in terms of the experience delivery. And I'm not talking about setting up itineraries in terms of experiences. I talk about when the people, as I said earlier, go back home, they say, this is where we want to go back to, because there was the warmth, there was exactly the feeling that I wanted to get. So I think we cannot go to more than 40 to 50 properties.
And that's so important, because the clientele you're dealing with, as I say all the time, is they bought it, sold it, invented it. They're pretty well-traveled people. So the touch points are critical, because they're used to marble and beautiful rooms and beautiful beds. It's like their house is probably nicer than most of the hotels they stay in. They may own the hotel that they're staying in. But that concierge, that front desk person, that housekeeper we were talking about before. I met a housekeeper here at the Aria yesterday. I fell in love with her. She was the nicest human being. She was everything that we talk about. Was she happy? She was happy. She was kind. She was positive. I asked her, when you think about in the morning when you come to work, what's the first thing you think about? She goes, I thank God that I get to breathe.
Wow.
I thank God that I have a beautiful place to work, and I thank God for my team every single day of my life. And the reason I asked her that question, because I knew in 10 seconds of meeting her, that would be her answer.
So you have her business card to hire her?
You know what? You couldn't hire her away.
Yes.
I'm telling you now, you couldn't hire that woman away from the Aria. She is that built into this. She opened it 16 years ago, Glenn?
Yeah.
16 years ago, and she was a housekeeper.
10 years ago for Aria, sorry.
And now she's the assistant manager of housekeeping.
Very good.
You could not get her away from this
We'll
property.
talk about that after.
So
Money
I want to know, being that you're here, and again for our audience, we're recording this during the Forbes Verified Luxury Summit, celebrating all the folks that have gained 5 stars this year. So I should say congratulations to your properties that have achieved that level. But how do you define luxury at the 5-star level? What does it really mean to you and your clients?
You talked earlier about the marble and the stuff, right? I think, yes, you're right. Some of our clients' homes most likely are more luxurious than hotels. And I think the actual physical act is a prerequisite. Maybe it allows you to participate. I, for example, I'm not a humongous suite guy. For me, other things are more important. For me, if a suite is too big, it gets actually more complicated. I look for other stuff. So, and I've seen that evolution also in our clientele, right? It's in terms of delivering the appropriate physical setting, but then the interaction that we discussed beforehand is the much more important piece. And when I took actually helm of the company, initially, obviously, I tried to understand what is the brand, right? We have the Langham in London since 1865, obviously a lot of heritage. When that property was opened, it was obviously not opened for the main purpose of accommodating people, right? Those are basically, yes, this is a side effect, but it was built as a space where things happen. Whether those are soirees or ball, kind of like events and large celebrations in that case. So when we went out and I started to ask our actual guests in terms of, why you come to the Langham? What are the memories that you connect? A lot of them were actually talking about, those little celebrations, whether it were, just the end of a busy week, or it was, a birthday, or it was weddings, and that's fantastic for us, because usually those events are obviously positive things that happen in people's life, and the connections then with the brand is something that was very, very important for me. So the luxury aspect for me is that we provide a service level that has to be consistent, no question. But it has to be delivered in a playful manner that is human. And that is not standardized to an extent that I feel that, okay, there is somebody working exactly the lines of in our industry, SOP, and basically saying, tick in the box, it was 100% versus those standards, but it didn't give me anything.
And 20 years ago, it was completely different. 20 years ago, it was very standardized.
Right.
You greeted, you held the pen, you looked at me. What I like to see in hotels, whether it be 3, 4, 5-star, specifically high-end 5-star hotels, is I want to see the opulence, obviously, of the service and of the building, but I want to feel the connection with the employee. And yesterday with that housekeeper, or the manager, she just made, I didn't know,
exactly.
I didn't care about anything. I don't care about Aria or MGM or Vegas. I wanted to know your experience. I want to know why you love this place so much. It literally, I started to cry. I was so emotional.
Wow.
That because I know how hard this business is. I've been doing this for a long time. Cleaning 18 toilet bowls a day is hard work. And you love coming to work and inspecting 18 toilet bowls or 50 toilet bowls and getting your team inspired by that. That's a special person.
Yes. No, I agree.
So how does this 5-star service really express itself in your hotels? Maybe you have a couple of great, people's stories that you could share that really reflects the ethos that you try to deliver every single day.
It's actually the people that our clients remember, right?
Yeah, of course.
Guests remember, and it's not the hotel manager.
That's right.
It's not the general manager. It's the guy that greets you at the front door in the Langham in London, right? He has a personality, wears his bowler hat, and he's there, and he always has the right sentence, and he gets you in the right mood. And if you're not in the right mood, he obviously recognizes that, and there you have this kind of sensitivity, and that goes on through all of those areas where, going back to what you said, recruiting the right people is the important part. We have those club lounges everywhere, which I think for me is a fantastic facility, because this is where I spend my time. I don't spend my time when I'm not at some meetings in the hotel room. I go to a place where I can be. And there, if you have the right people that deliver the service and create the atmosphere that you want to be in that space, that's what luxury is to me. You don't want to come to and I have to say something that is a little bit critical to, obviously the U.S. restaurant business. I always get turned off when by the end of my meal, the check comes on the table and whenever you're ready.
Right.
And I'm like,
well, I'm not ready.
Are you throwing me out right now? What is this, right? The meal was great, service was good, but this is now, honestly, for me, that's a letdown.
Right.
And eliminating those letdowns is what luxury is all about.
So how do you know what is a letdown for one person but not another person? Because some people might appreciate getting that check thrown down so they could get on with their lives.
Can I just add? No, I'm going to add because I think he answered the question. It's saying the right sentence.
Right.
When I was at the Chicago Langham for 5-Star Secrets, the room service attendant came up and he said to me, "Oh, we have an appointment." And I said, "What appointment?" And he said, "It's the room service is here." That was the right sentence.
Right. And normally the sentence is, "When you're ready, ring us and we pick it up," which is the wrong sentence.
Right. Or we'll be there in 40 minutes, or we'll do our best to be there. That's my favorite. We'll do our best to be there in 40 minutes.
So you won't be?
Or just say you will be within 40 minutes. Don't say you do your best. Yeah. But the right sentence. So to make sure that experience is different but feels the same for everyone is the right sentence. Vocabulary and the way you enunciate, the way your emotion comes through, your language, your body language, everything matters. And like you said, there's times where I walk into a property and I'm wide open. I'm like, bring me in and show me. And there's sometimes I come in the property and it's like, don't even look at me.
Exactly.
Give me my key. I don't want to talk to anyone. And you have to intuitively.
And also know what time it is, what settings are out there, and all those things. But let me make one thing quite clear. My job, if I would know best in operations, I'm in the wrong job, right? My job is to facilitate between all our GMs, and you've met some of them, which are great leaders in their trade, to make sure that we exchange, we positively, communicate in a way and saying, this is what we tried, this worked well, and have that kind of spirit created.
So how does that work, though, when you have hotels in all these different time zones like you were referring to earlier? Because you can't just get everybody on a call at like 2 p.m. because it's 2 a.m. for some people.
Yeah, but it's again, it's creating the right attitude, the positive attitude that you celebrate not only for your guests, you celebrate those success stories, you share those success stories, you encourage with this sharing, actually, that some people come forward. Because if you penalize wrongdoing, you will create an environment where nobody comes forward. Because in your eyes, that might have been a brilliant service. In some others' eyes, that might have been, not following certain procedures. So I said, my role is to set the stage and create the right atmosphere that sharing is possible. But if I would know better, I would be in the wrong job, and my GMs would be in the wrong jobs either, right?
And I think in your job, it's really challenging because, and I'll say this in the most delicate way I can, general managers are kings and queens in their mind, especially if they're running really fancy 5-star hotels. They are prime minister or king of a country. When you run these big, beautiful, he's laughing because he knows I'm right. So you have to have a personality that allows them, and not all of them, but allows them, they obtain that 5-star level, that ability to run these businesses. Because forget about hotels and service and stands. This is a business. So these people are very good business people. They're entrepreneurs and they're very, very smart. if you start treating them like you are the smartest person and that you know how to run their hotel, to your point, you're done. Because a lot of those people have a lot of experience and they can kind of bring their brand anywhere they want.
Exactly. But what I'm saying, and you pointed in the right direction, is because they're the kings of the castle. Okay? But that's also where the challenge lies. Mm-hmm. Because our world has developed in a direction when if you are not open to look left and right mm-hmm. and get that kind of influence and incorporate that in your evolution on how you do the job, you will fall behind.
Sure.
Because their technology, whether it's Instagram or whatever, has changed, obviously, the clients, the guests' overall broadness in terms of, where they get their impressions from.
Right.
So, and yes, you have those kings of the castles. They grow through the ranks and they're very clear and they're very, they're very used of saying people what to do. And that's the challenge in leadership. In the past, you had to do certain things. Now they're in roles where they need to get things done, which is a very different job.
100%.
All right, so how much of your time is spent on issues such as this versus dealing with investors, dealing with designs for the upcoming hotels, those sorts of things?
When my, whether colleagues from school or from...
Where'd you go to school?
I went obviously in Bavaria, I went to school, and then I went to university in Georgia, actually, in the deep south.
Oh, so he went to Georgia, the country.
Yeah. I'm in Georgia, the state, yes. So when they asked me in terms of, you're a CEO, this is a difficult job, and I said, well, it might be difficult from a responsibility perspective, but from a questions perspective, it's actually a relatively simple job, because when I go into meetings, right, I have to figure out why are we doing certain things, how are we getting them done, who is doing what if certain things don't happen, how do we mitigate, in terms of asking those questions and trying to get an understanding in terms of do we have a good plan, where are the areas where I'm not so convinced about whether we have a good plan, getting in resources or help where I said, listen, have a second look at that and basically trying to reduce certain risks. So that's more of my job than telling people what to do. Because, as I said earlier, in that distributed environment from a portfolio perspective, I cannot tell Richard in New York what to do in his hotel. I mean, he's 12 hours time difference away.
Right.
So usually when I think of something, he's asleep or the other way around. Right?
And I think people in your position, in leaders, that you can fly all day, all night to get to one hotel, have meeting for 2 days, and if you ask one question, I think a leader's job is to go into a room full of really smart, talented people and ask everyone in that room a question they don't know the answer to or they didn't think about. That, to me, is truly a leader's job, is you can literally travel all day, get there, ask one question, and go home and have done your job. Yeah. That because they are so smart, so talented. If you're not thinking for them because they're so entrenched in what they're doing, it's really hard to gain their respect. Because that one question that comes out of your mouth, because they don't really want you to talk too much. In my experience, it's if you come in with a couple of good questions, they admire that.
No, I know what I know.
Right.
If I hear me talking, I don't learn anything. Right? I want them talking.
Absolutely.
That's the point. But I also don't do fly-in, fly-outs.
Right.
Because, any good team can put up a show for a few hours. Right? They can. So that's not what
Mr. Marriott says. If I smell paint, somebody's going to get fired because he says I have more jackets with paint on it than I know what to do with.
No, so for me, I want to go. If I go someplace, now I went over the weekend. I stayed in the Langham in LA, in Pasadena, right? And then you feel the place. You're there for a few days, and you get an understanding in terms of where our challenges are and where the team has improved, and then you encourage them, and then you basically tell them, look, I would have expected that we're a little further with that, or not, and you ask them where their constraints lies, because sometimes you don't even know what processes, what approvals, what crazy things that you don't even think of prevent them from doing their job, right? So this is also the fun part, and this is, the time difference is not the fun part. The jet lag, I could live without.
Right, I'm
but
sure.
In terms of meeting people with so diverse cultural backgrounds, in their settings, or even, in different settings. It's just an amazing...
What tools do you use to diffuse this wall that people put up between you and them? You're the CEO of the company. You're coming in. It's like the general. I was in the military. When the general comes in, everybody gets nervous. And you're just a person, just like everyone else. Like, what kind of skills or things, tools in your toolbox to diffuse that right away? Because it's exhausting.
Yeah, no, I usually say I'm too lazy to maintain different stories. That's why I say what I think. Okay, I am who I am. I'm not putting up a role because it would be too exhausting for me. And I think people feel that. And, yes, there is that barrier. And there are people that are more comfortable with crossing that barrier, that is, that invisible barrier, and speaking up or not, and others that are not. And then you need to, find your way of getting in a conversation where those little tones, give you a little bit the hint in terms of whether there is something you should actually dig a little deeper or not.
So tonight we're here at the Aria to celebrate all the success of 4- and 5-star hotels. You're going to see some of your peers tonight. How does that work when you see people in your set? Because there are other brands in your competition, in your comp set. It's very, very competitive. How does that work when you see your peers?
Will
you share ideas?
Do we share ideas? Not necessarily, right? But that, those conversations we meet obviously at all those kind of events. I mean, our industry is a large industry when it comes to employment numbers, but it's still a small industry when it comes to leadership numbers, right? At a certain point in time, you've met most likely most of the chief executives or the chief operating officers or roles like that. And with some of them you click, and with some others you just be friendly. But that's like in real life as well, right? With some you would have a beer at the bar. With others you would say,
"Nice seeing you."
Yeah, that's what the Americans would say.
Yeah. So speaking about what the Americans would say and stuff, you're traveling all over the world. You're meeting people. How do you get to understand all the different cultural nuances that you have to deal with in order to present your point of view in the way that's going to be heard most effectively and efficiently?
Good question.
Yeah, I guess.
He doesn't ask many of them.
Not on this podcast. I feel like I'm Mr. Silent Guy over here. I'm glad I finally said something.
And I had that experience, actually saying the same sentence in a meeting in Russia, in India, and in China will trigger very different things.
Right.
Right? If I say a sentence like, we discuss something, and then I say, we should do this and this, or shouldn't we do this and this? In Russia, and I'm now generalizing, and I don't want to stereotype.
We appreciate that, yes.
But not a lot would happen, because there people expect that you tell them what to do, okay? Where if you're in India, the team halfway through the sentence has already started working on 5 things they think you want, right? Because they're very different receiving.
Right.
Culturally.
And here in America, we'll just pretend we didn't hear you.
I don't know. No, I think the U.S., obviously, I haven't worked in the U.S. I have worked with, for a U.S. company and in Plano, Texas. But you meet people of all kinds, right? You meet people that pretend to be busy, and you meet the other ones that are diligent and seriously give you the feedback.
I love that. Pretend to be busy. That's my favorite person.
I know. It always seems like so much work to pretend to be busy when you can just do some stuff and
you must be exhausted
it.
by the end of the day.
I am.
So I'm going to ask you a question. It's probably an end of the podcast question, but I'm going to ask you now because I'll forget. Of all the places you've traveled, you have 24 hours, you have all the time, all the money, all the energy. Where are you eating and what are you doing? It's all you. You can do whatever you want all by yourself. Not your wife, not your family. What are you eating and what are you doing?
What am I eating and what am I doing?
And where are you?
I would be in Cape Town,
Okay.
I love South Africa, and my wife gets irritated by that because every time the question comes up, where would we go? Is that I would love to go to Cape Town. I've been there 40, 50 times.
Wow.
And I think it's a fantastic city. And I would most likely want to fly in obviously on the back seat or in the front seat, wherever that is, of a fighter jet.
Oh, wow.
I'm speed crazy to that.
I was in the Air Force, so I'm there with you.
And so that would be an experience, and I know that's possible down there, but I don't know whether she would let me do that. And food, it really depends on the mood. Usually, during the day, I go heavy and local for lunch, and then I go light for dinner. I mean, and there.
It's very European.
I took the words out of my mouth.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, and to be fair, I'm not necessarily looking for something that is overly
Extravagant.
Yes, when somebody tries too hard, I'd much rather have something that is an original dish that is done exceptionally well. And
From the heart.
From the heart. And there it can go from, a simple Caesar salad to an Austrian dessert to, a perfect steak or going vegan. I don't mind.
Right. How important is it for you to stay at other 5-star brands or even other 4- and 3-star brands in order to better inform you for what you and your company are up to?
I think it is very important, and it's very important that I am able to do that without them knowing.
Yes.
Why am I doing it and who am I?
If they know who you are, then it's going to be tainted.
Yes, that's the point, right? So this is the major part that, and I look up to brands that, may not be on the top of the radar list of people out there, but where I say, wow, something done with great dedication. I love certain offerings in Tuscany that are small farmhouses that have transformed into luxury accommodation, where there is so much heart in there, and obviously also the soil and the nature is spectacular. Or also think that if you're in Europe in the Alps, there are some amazing families that provide hospitality and live that.
And it's such a emotional connection for me when I see that. When I see people really getting up in the morning and wanting to make you that perfect waffle, or wanting to bring you on that perfect little tour of their village, it's something that is just, I can't describe how it makes me feel. And that's one of the reasons I've been fortunate enough that my love of service and hospitality is just innate. And so when I see that, it literally makes me really emotional.
And that's what I want to get done, right? You're making sure that we deliver that, obviously, at a larger scale. Because our places are not 7-room converted farmhouses or palazzos,
right?
And I think that can be done.
But you know how you provide that, Glenn? Let's see if he's paying attention.
Yeah.
How do you provide that?
Provide what? Good service?
Just what he said. That deep, serious, sincere hospitality.
You've got to find happy people.
There you go. He passed the test. And you said he wasn't paying attention.
No, he did.
No, I'm paying attention. The funny thing is about this conversation that we're having, or I should say the conversation you guys are having, is he is so crazy engaged in this and is having so much fun. I hardly even want to jump in because you're having a field day right now.
But tell him why you said that.
Why?
Tell him
because
why.
Usually I do all the talking?
No, because I'm usually he's the corporate guy, right? So the PR, and I'm very impressed that you didn't bring a PR person with you, so thank you. But he's very aware of asking very corporate questions and making sure that from a corporate standpoint, the PR people, you're happy, everybody's happy, and we're not making any mistakes.
Right.
I'm an operator.
Right.
My passion is the guest and the housekeeper.
Operator.
That's my passion. So he sees that. Like, I am completely relating to what you're saying because you are this important person in our industry. You are a person that sets a standard. You are a person that changes the way, in some instances, hospitality is delivered. But you're saying it in a way that I appreciate and I understand. I would be absolutely blown away if at the end of this meeting you told me that you weren't a general manager, you weren't an operator. I'm glad you told me up front because I think my mouth would hit the floor because you're speaking like you've been a general manager since you're 12. And everybody knows I have the best BS filter in the whole friggin' world. And And it's amazing because I have met a lot of people. I know a lot of people in your industry, in your positions. And half of them I like, and half of them I probably wouldn't have a cup of coffee with because they are the most important person in their company. And in your company, you're the least important person. And I see that.
Yeah.
And that really, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So that's why he said that.
Yes. Thank
Right?
you.
Because I'm engaged.
Maybe. I'm also friendly with the PR person that you have here in the United States, for example, and I want to make her happy. Louise, if you're listening, I hope I made you happy.
I think
Louis trusts me.
Good.
Right.
And not all PR people trust their CEOs.
And you know what? Tell Louise I said hi. She knows exactly who I am because she helped me. She's been there for years, right?
Yes.
She put the whole 5-star secret thing together.
No, that's great.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I have her cell phone in my. She was amazing to work with. But the reason it's really important to me to dig deep of what the why is because a lot of young hospitality people listen to our podcast. We have 60,000 downloads a month, and most of them are hospitality hoteliers. And they see people like you, and they think you're some kind of just. They think
Martian. That you're born on a different planet.
Yeah, what's the word?
Right?
A unicorn.
Yeah,
you're a unicorn. It's like I'll never get there. Look at him. Look at. And so even when I was coming
which is absolutely not true. Like if I look at the people that are close to me, also in my company, and people that are actually progressing, in the company, right? I mean, they grow through the ranks, but they grow through the ranks and bring some of the capabilities to the table that I described earlier, right? Which are, yes, attitudes in a certain way, and listening is also an attitude. The willingness to learn, the positivity about accepting that, okay, certain things we should have done differently, and the next time we try in a different manner. And so I think we are one of the industries where you actually can make it from, polishing the shoes to my job.
The gentleman that runs Walt Disney World, the gentleman who runs Walt Disney World parks, was a bellman at one of the hotels and now runs all the parks.
Yeah, we hear these stories all of the time in the hospitality industry. It's amazing.
And I don't think there are a lot of industries out there that, can say the same thing. I usually, when I was at Cornell and, at EHL in Lausanne, and when I talked to those students, I said, look, guys, you haven't chosen that industry because you want to optimize your income. Right? You would have gone into insurances or into real estate or other things. That's where the bigger paychecks are. So you have already fulfilled step number one. You choose this industry because you have a passion for that, right? And so that's a big prerequisite. And I hope that we don't lose too many people to other industries where the short-term paycheck is actually, what lures them away. Because there is one more thing that. And obviously the current situation, we haven't touched that, but the current situation with, the coronavirus.
I didn't bring that up on purpose.
Right. No, but,
it's top of mind.
No, it's not. It's top of mind. And what it says and what I'm saying is that we are most likely the industry with the most stress-resistant people that are out there in the planet because they're used to deal with all kinds of situations on a daily basis. Somebody could come in and forgot his luggage or that, little things to big dramas,
Suicides, heart attacks.
Everything that happens, right? I've been in that industry and we had everything from unfortunate plane crashes to, tsunamis to ash clouds. And I've never seen that the people in whatever teams I worked with were intimidated or were afraid to show up. They always showed up. And this is what I think I like very much. What I also tell them when you talk about the ones that most likely listen to the podcast is if they look back in their families, a lot of times when things need to be done in their families, they're the natural people that everybody will turn to. And that's what you're going to see, right? And you can see a lot of nodding in that audience. And that says to me, you're right where you are.
It's fascinating. My grandmother-in-law was 90. She was 97 years old, and I was very close to her, but she was a very tough woman. Okay, and she owned her own company when she was in the 1940s and 50s when women didn't own businesses, and Anyway, she married out of her religion, and she went against the grain. And when she was basically dying, she was in a nursing home, and she wanted to go home. And everyone in the family was kind of like, well, the doctor said this, doctor said that. He goes, get Anthony. Literally, my wife calls me and goes, Nana wants you. I go, Nana wants me. Da, da, da. So I went to the nursing home. I go, Nana, what's up? She goes, get me out of here. I got her out of there. Like, so, wow, that was like, everybody turned to me. It's like, yeah, they know I'm going to get it done.
Good for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's an amazing point.
This is the natural aura that those people represent to their family that doesn't have anything to do with in terms of what their job is. And I think those are the people that I encourage to not only join our industry, but also stay in our industry, and they will make a career. I have no question.
And you've said a lot of things, and I'll summarize it by saying, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. Just go about your business in a very passionate way. One of my favorite things to do is go down to the pastry department and watch the chef in charge of the pastry department obsess over a little pastry. Yeah. It's one of my favorite. It's like watching an opera.
It's art.
It's like watching a surgeon do brain surgery.
Yes, it is.
It's like, this is a sugary pastry that someone's going to eat in one, just go, whoop, and it's gone. Never going to remember it again. Or maybe they will, and they'll say, oh, that was really good. But I love that kind of passion. Pastry chefs, to me, are the craziest, most intense people in the world.
I tell you another similar crazy crowd.
Yeah.
That's, the Chinese kitchen. When you look at how dim sum is prepared, for us, dim sum, when you come to that culture, you're not familiar with that. It's like, okay, I like it, know. But then once you get introduced to the art behind how it's prepared, it's a little bit like sushi,
right.
in the same way, where you say, and that's fascinating. And you have people that have so much attention to detail and love what they do, despite the fact that what you rightly said, it will be one bite and it's gone. Right?
But they will give a leg for
everything. Exactly.
And that's why I love more and more. I'm getting involved, hopefully, with this 5-star hotel out in California, and I hopefully we can make a deal so I can get involved, because I am dying to get back to that level of service. And literally, it is. I didn't realize it. I took a tour of it recently, and it's completely gutted property. And as I'm going around, I'm like, hey, and they're all looking at me. They're all investors in the property, and they all look like I was insane. At the end, they all loved it, and like, oh my God, loved your pitch. But I look like an insane person.
When you said it, he was thinking it.
I was.
No, but like I was talking about things.
Nuts.
I was talking about there was this little space in the basement, what they can do with it, and how they get. And they're like, oh, we didn't think. They had these bricks downstairs in the basement. There were like 100 bricks from the original building. They were way over 100 years old. And I go, what are you going to do with those bricks? There's only 100 of them. And they said, there's a wall we're going to put over. I said, no. This is what you're going to do. You're going to polish them up. I said, just like this. You're going to polish them up. And this is going to be like a big place for weddings. It's right on the water, right? So you can polish them up. And then you're going to put the date that people got married. You're going to put your brand there. And then you can put a beautiful box. And you're going to give it to them as a gift. And they're like, that's a great idea. But I said it just like that. They're like, that's a great idea. But I literally...
They said that's a great idea, but you're still nuts, right?
Yeah,
right.
There you go. But I love being nuts. I love being...
That's creative, not nuts.
I love, to me, a hotel is a blank canvas. And when people come in here, they're not going to a hotel, they're coming home.
You described exactly perfectly what we are trying to do. You said to me earlier, what is Langham trying to do? What is luxury? This is what we're trying to do.
So then tell us what you're trying to do, for example, at that Boston property that's going to reopen after being reinvented and repositioned. Right. So how do you take something like that and create that 21st century year 2021 hospitality?
Look, because of the location, what for us is important, that obviously, yes, it's a historic building, was the Federal Reserve Bank.
It's small. Some of the rooms were a little tiny when I was there, one of the suites.
Yeah, but as I said, room size is not everything.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
If you program it the right way, I think then, it can be the perfect room. I think it will be the best place in town. To be honest, I obviously looked at everything.
Yeah.
And, but what's more important for me is how do we make that the most favorite place in town?
Right.
Right? And therefore, Boston has, I know you're from New York, and I know that could be a touchy
No, I love
subject.
Boston. Boston's one of my favorite cities.
But, you want to have...
As long as we're not talking about the Red Sox.
You want to have
I love the Red Sox.
Boston in our hotel, right? Whether it comes to our staff, whether it comes to our, F&B, what we're trying to do there, the concepts that we are creating, the service delivery, down to how we look, how we interact. And then it will not only become the most favorite place for the people that work in that vicinity, but also then for the people that come because they feel like they visited Boston.
One of the nights we stayed there when me and my daughter were going through BU, they sent us up something for me. It's a Hotel Impossible on, but they sent us up something for my daughter that had BU on it. It had the BU logo on it. And I truly appreciated that. And it was interesting because I had just come from Chicago, and I did the show there, and I fell in love with it. And then I went to that hotel, and I was like, it's different. And
it was exceptionally different.
It was different, and it needed to go through the transformation it's going through. But the one thing that translated was the people.
Yes.
I remember how they made me feel. So I didn't compare it and say, like, well, the Chicago one is better. I was just like, it's different.
The physical appearance definitely was another category. And that's what we recognized.
Right, but I didn't say it was better or worse. I said it was different because the people made me feel the same. So I didn't care.
Yes.
I didn't care less. It was beautiful, it was gorgeous, but it wasn't the same. But the spirit of hospitality was the same.
Right. I think the best thing that you've said on this entire podcast that I'm going to take away from this is not that you want to create the fanciest hotel, but the most favorite hotel. That, I think, really strikes a chord, and I think everyone listening out there should really think about what that really means. It's about making that emotional connection with guests, making them feel really super great about themselves and not saying, oh, that's the fanciest lamp we could put in the corner.
Yes, exactly.
What do you tell a young person in your hotel that may be dealing with a difficult general manager, a difficult supervisor, feeling not respected, not appreciated? What is the person that doesn't have the power? What is your advice to them? What do they do? Because they feel like they're sinking. I'm not saying that happens in your hotel. It could happen in other hotels. Just in general, one of the things that I've experienced my entire career is I was a walk-around general manager. I walked around because no one's going to tell me the problems. I got to find them for myself sometimes. And a lot of things that I found was those mid-level managers or the line employees didn't feel they had a voice.
Look, I think first I would try to understand in terms of what the communication issue is, because a lot of times it's a communication issue in terms of, what are you saying and what is the other person receiving, right? And therefore, is there something that you can do to change that maybe the receiving end receives what you want to send in that respect? And to be fair, if it's a multitude of similar comments about what you could call a mud layer or somebody that is actually a detractor from a leadership perspective, then you need to act upon it, right? And I speak to everybody in the hotel. The only promise that I give to obviously the people that are in charge is I will not tell the people what to do because I don't want to intervene, right? But at the same point in time, I'm absolutely happy to speak to anybody, and I haven't encountered that situation too many times. It's more about that people complain about processes, right? In terms of why are we doing this, and there, what I'm trying to do is I say, look, let's look when we introduced that. Most likely there was the right intention to do that, and let's go back to what the original intention was when we did it, and whether then that is still necessary or we need to alter it, because if you don't do that, if you don't think about that, then you just simply follow certain things that over time you add layers of people of things that people need to do, which make jobs complicated. And try to get rid of those is really looking back at what was the original intention. Do we still need that? Have we made it more complicated? Or
that sounds like it's probably a great exercise to go through every once in a while.
Absolutely.
With all jobs.
And one of the things you said was communication. I would imagine in a hospital, communication is very important. Don't take off the left leg, take off the right leg. Right? So you see that process where I just had a couple of surgeries, and you see that process in the hospital. I think it's the same thing in the hospitality industry because the people are really vulnerable when they're in a hotel, and your communication has got to be so clear. There's so many times, not so many, but several times I can remember where I can tell somebody, hey, can you do me a favor and make a hamburger? And all of a sudden I have a dancing elephant. It's like, I asked for a hamburger. How did I get a dancing elephant? And it's like, I know I was in the same room as you. I know I wrote it down. I know I sent you an email. I know 3 people heard me. I asked for a hamburger, not a dancing elephant. It is so important. Communication is so important. One of my favorite things is the red book behind the front desk. Mm-hmm. I want that red logbook behind the front desk. I want everybody reading. I want to sign it. We have the computer system. We have this. We have that. And I just want that old-fashioned red book that we all communicate through for every department. But communication is I probably spend 99% of my day just ensuring we improve communication.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I'm trying to emphasize that how do you make sure the person you communicated with has understood what you want them to understand? How do you follow up in terms of whether it's at the end of the meeting or at the end of a simple conversation saying, listen, this is what I want you to understand. And it's like asking, what is your takeaway? Right. Because if you don't do that, you think you've said your sentence, the other person might have heard the elephant.
And just those words, they have to trust and respect you just to say, okay, Glenn, what was your takeaway? Because that's almost sounding like I'm talking down to you, but I'm not. No. I'm from Brooklyn. I may have said something incorrectly. I may have communicated my emotion instead of my intention. And that's not what I want to do.
That's a great point.
And so, but I've been in that situation where I want to ask them, what did you take away from this? And it's almost exhausting because I don't want them to feel like I'm belittling them. But I don't know if I was really communicating well because I don't always communicate well.
I have an advantage because I'm not a native speaker, right? My language is obviously, by no means anywhere near to be perfect. So I can ask in terms of what did come across right now? What did you understand? And
you can play stupid.
No, I mean, you guys.
I understand.
You guys don't appreciate, right? We need to translate, right? I mean, my brain still, and I need to think, and then think how I say it.
Are you talking about when you use English or other languages?
No, English.
Yeah, well, you're normally German.
Yes.
Or do you speak?
How many languages do you know?
Well, I speak. I would, if I count English in fluent, those two, and I understand another three.
Wow.
What are the ones you understand?
I would understand,
Say Mandarin.
Mandarin?
I'll get upset.
No, I don't. There I can tell my taxi driver in the morning in Cantonese where I need to go, but that's about it, right? Now I understand Italian, I understand some Spanish, and I understand some French.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Hindi at first, but
no,
yours makes a lot more sense.
No.
All right, so
before we end it, because I sense that we're going to end it, what time do we have to be downstairs?
It's shortly.
What time is it?
It is 50 minutes before the event begins.
50?
50 minutes before the event begins.
Okay, so we have to get in our tuxedos and look all pretty.
Yes, we do.
The question I have for you is, what inspires you? What's your why?
What's my why? Why am I show up for work?
Yeah.
Look, I will do the job very simple. As long as I feel that I get at least an equal amount of energy out of the job than I have to spend on the job.
That's interesting.
Right? Because, if you're not in that balance, then you can go through that, let's say, deficit for a certain period of time, but then you burn out and then you don't deliver anything. And my interaction, this was fun. This gives me energy, right?
Good, yeah.
This wasn't complicated. But as I said, because I am who I am, right? If I would have brought a PR lady, it might have been more complicated.
No, I would have broke it down.
Politically.
I like making them really nervous.
Yeah, it would have been more complicated for me, nobody else.
His face is priceless. We just had someone, she was lovely, but we just had someone, and it literally was getting nervous wreck. And at the end, I go, how did I do? She goes, you got me a little nervous, and I didn't ask any other question that I'm asking you. Yeah. And they did just get all kind of nervous. And again, I'm a turnaround expert, so I go in, everything's broken, yes. I got to put it back together.
So I'm not getting intimidated by difficult situations. Right? That's fine, right? The current situation, I say, look, I worry about things I have an impact over, and I don't worry about things I really
How is that impacting your business right now?
Oh, it is, definitely. We have, obviously, including all our brands, we have up to 14 properties in mainland China and in Hong Kong, and they're definitely not busy.
You have 14?
Yes. We have another brand.
Right. And as we are recording this, some of the major American hotel companies, Wyndham closed 1,000 properties, Hilton closed 150 properties. So it's going to, IHG, I think, had to close a whole bunch as well, a lot of Holiday Inns.
And it will impact the world, right?
Yeah. Hyatt just put out guidance today saying that they're worried about their first quarter results.
Look, the Chinese travelers represent now 15% of all international travelers.
Yep.
Right? If they're not traveling for a couple of months, you will obviously feel it.
And if we're not traveling there,
right?
But look, am I concerned about what it means to the business? Absolutely. But that's about it.
See, and that's a PR there, because 90% of the people we would put in that seat and ask that question, their PR person would be like,
yeah, don't even talk about that.
Don't talk about it. You were so clear, so transparent. Like, if you told me, hey, you can go there, but don't go there, I trust you. I wouldn't trust a lot of people to make that decision for me. And I would imagine in your corporation and the people that you work around you trust you. And they may not like that you're direct sometimes, but they trust you, and that's the difference. You can be direct with people, and you can be clear with people if they trust you. A lot of people don't get their trust, and then they try to direct people in a very, pretty clear way, and they're like, "Why aren't they listening to me?" Well, because you didn't do the hard work of building the trust.
Yeah. Nothing to add.
Right.
I think we got to wrap this bad boy up.
So I am going to apply for a position to work for this gentleman because I really, really am inspired by him. You really did inspire me.
Thank you so much.
It's true. He doesn't really say that about a lot of
people. I've never
people.
said that.
Yeah. He says that about me. But wait, no, that was in my dreams. I was hoping he would say that about me.
No, it's true. And because when I'm looking at a hotelier that respects the people that work with them and understands how hard their job is, that's all I want.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Right. And ever since this conversation started, I keep thinking about that REM song, Shiny Happy People Holding Hands, right?
So REM from Athens, Georgia.
Yes, right. I
forgot you. Everything's a music reference to him.
I know. So we like to end every single show, although you may have given us a tease about something about this. Tell us something about you that we don't know.
He does yoga.
That you don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know.
No, I know. It should be easy because we know nothing about you.
You know what's so funny? No one's ever said that. But like, I always say this, like, well, we don't know anything about you.
We just know what you said in the last hour.
That's why I love him. But or we'll ask it differently. Tell us something that we may be surprised to know about you.
That's a good way to do it, yeah.
I was an athlete when I was young.
That's not surprising.
Not surprising.
No, but it's good enough.
He has 1% body fat. Yeah. That's not surprising.
No. But
it's a 0.5%. You totally insulted
What kind of athlete?
Decathlon.
A what?
Decathlon.
Decathlon. Yeah, that makes sense. So he's strong. He's strong, fast, and agile.
No, but what I say is, if you're not good at any particular discipline, you have to do them all.
Oh, okay.
That was the reason why.
That's the hotel business, right?
Here we go. Exactly.
Right. That's perfect.
That's
Love
good.
it. So, Anthony, tell us something about you that we don't know.
I do not train in decathlon, but I was a wrestler in high school.
Oh.
And I put my singlet on about 5 years ago, and my children are still talking about it. Right. Because I had to be extracted. A surgeon had to extract it out of every orifice of my body. But I did fit into it. I did put it on.
Goodness.
But yeah, I was a wrestler, and I wouldn't say I was the best, but if you were the state champion or you just started yesterday,
right,
you knew you were in a fight. And I probably won a little bit more than the majority. I'd say maybe 60% of my matches. But even the ones I lost, I just made sure they knew I was on the mat with them.
Glenn and I will give you competitiveness right from the start. We
sure.
have no question on that.
Yes.
You get that, right? How about you, my friend? What don't we know about you? I think we know everything. Shut up.
You pretty much know everything. This is going to come as a shock to everyone. Not an athlete over here. So, yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No, I know. Right?
What we don't know yet is how you look in a tuxedo, which we will see.
But ask him his nickname.
What's
your nickname?
G-Love.
That you would be surprised about.
All right. You've done absolutely fantastic on this podcast.
Thank you so
and
much
you
for
have
having me.
earned a shameless plug. Anything you want to share right now? Promote your brand, your company, the whole thing.
No, I think, we talked about it. And, for the ones that don't know it, I obviously would want you to try out whether what I said is halfway true.
So where would we find
LanghamHospitalityGroup.com.
What's your website?
Yes.
What is it?
LanghamHospitalityGroup.com.
Right. Or Langham Hotels and Resorts. And if you Google it, you'll find us.
And
yes.
You know what? I will also say that to the people that sometimes they're not the 5-star people and they're not the fancy hotel people, it's like everyone can take a trip of a lifetime for one night in a hotel.
Right.
Save your money if you really it's not your thing and go to one of these spectacular properties because it really, to me, those kind of properties you run, that's life.
Right.
That's what you aspire to be.
Yeah, and I'd say you don't have to be a 5-star hotel to deliver a 5-star experiences, right?
So,
how can we find you, Anthony?
You can find me at Anthony Hotels, anywhere you want to be on the internet, and at a Langham Hotel.
Yeah. I am at Traveling Glenn. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Text the word hotel to 66866. That's the word hotel to 66866. Get all the content from all of our shows, not just checking in with Anthony and Glenn, but our No Vacancy podcast, our tech show, our design show, all of the other great content that we're doing delivered right to your mailbox. We're here to educate, empower, and entertain you. So, for Mr. Stefan, for Mr. Anthony, and me, Glenn, thanks for checking in.
Anytime I talk to someone opening a hotel, I tell them to call Cintas. I've worked with them for years, and they're always leading the industry forward. And now, they're doing it again with Design Collective by Cintas. Gone are the days of all hotel employees looking exactly the same in outdated, mandated uniforms. Now, award-winning fashion designers at Design Collective by Cintas develop modern employee wardrobe collections. Retaining staff is about choice, and allowing employees to select garments they want is part of that choice. Employees love expressing their authentic selves, and now they can do it through apparel while their apparel stays on brand. A well-dressed team member is happier and more likely to deliver exceptional service while enhancing the overall hotel or casino experience. There is no other wardrobe collection like Design Collective. Their experience in design, along with their ability to actually implement the program, makes them the only company I'll call when it comes to employee apparel, period. Call them at 1-800-864-3676 or online at cintas.com/Design Collective.